Hi, I'm Crazy Girl Book Review, and basically what I'm going to be doing in these videos, this is the first one, so that's why I'm explaining it, and then I'll do the review, is I'll be just talking about a book that I pick for that. Probably going to be like a week in between these videos. I'll probably make them faster because I read books faster, but I'll probably put a week in between putting them out so that I have like tons for you forever. There will be spoilers in every book review. So please, please, please don't get mad at me about that because this is me talking about books. So, now that first minute and 40 seconds is totally wasted on a topic that's completely away from books, we're going to go to the actual first book review. My first book review is going to be about Crank by Ellen Hopkins, and here's a picture. And that book is about this girl that's 15, 16, or 17, I forget. I know she turns 18 in the second book, so don't know exactly how much old that makes her in the first two books, but, the first book, but that's neither here nor there. But she is required by court to go and spend a summer with her dad, who's a drug addict. And she goes off to, I think her dad lives in Albuquerque, and she lives in Reno. And she goes there, and it's just a really different world that she's introduced to. At her mom's house, she's pretty privileged. She lives in a nice house, and she has both a mom and a stepdad who's been like her dad and been there for her since she was about like 7. She has a little brother and a big sister. She's kind of got the perfect family over in Reno. And then in Albuquerque, where her dad is, she's introduced to this whole new world. It's a little crazy. Her dad works in a bowling alley in the bad part of town. He does drugs. He has connections to drugs. He knows how to get them, where to get them, all that stuff. And she basically dives headfirst into the drug world. And it's very hard to be in the drug world and not do drugs. And she doesn't last very long with not doing them. She mostly starts doing the drugs because of a guy. Of course, guys, they ruin us girls forever. But, she originally starts doing the drugs because this guy named Adam, or Buddy, I guess he has the nickname Buddy, but his name is Adam, and he tells her, like, all these things that make her feel really good inside, and basically just kind of uses her, and she loves it and eats it up, and he does drugs like pot and crank, which is the title of the thing, and I guess the street name for crystal meth, and pops her drug cherry, like her drug using cherry. And that's a reference to the third book, which one of her kids uses that as a reference. And then from that point on, she's addicted to crystal meth, or crank, and it's the monster. So most of the time she calls it the monster. The book is basically a precautionary tale inspired by the true story of Ellen Hopkins' daughter. It's a precautionary tale of what drugs can do to your life and how it can influence you and just make you fall from grace, basically. Because Christina's kind of seen as, in the beginning, the perfect daughter. She has straight A's, she's got a good attitude, she does as she's told. She's basically the last person on earth you'd expect to get addicted to drugs, and it's kind of about how she just falls off the high road, and just her life is ruined because of it. Character-wise, there are many. There's Christina, the main character, her family, which includes Marie, her mother, Scott, her stepfather, Jake, her little brother, Lee, her older sister, and her dad, who I can't remember the name of. I don't think it's really in the book very many times. It's probably once or twice, and I know it's in later books. Like, I think it's in Fallout a couple of times, but I can't really remember. There's the many boys that Christina becomes interested in, and that would include Adam, or Buddy. Buddy's his nickname, but Adam's his real name. And Chase and Brendan. And then there's Linz, who's Adam's other girlfriend. And Hunter. Near the end, there's Hunter. And Hunter is in the next two books a lot more than he is in the first book. And there's her friends and her connections, like Robin and Trent, and then she has a best girlfriend, but I can't really remember her name because she's only in the book like twice. The book is telling you with the two different characters that are Christina, because there's Bree and there's Christina. It's telling you by defining that one person as two different people, is kind of showing how drugs make you a different person, and how, like, there's a completely different side that you are when you're high than the person that you are when you're not high. When you're sober, you're a much different person. You're probably a lot better. Not trying to insult any drug addicts out there that are watching this, but you're probably a lot better person when you're sober than you are when you're high. And Bree represents the high version of Christina. And Christina herself represents the good version and the sober version. And it's kind of like a split personality kind of thing going on. And that is a little confusing sometimes because Bree will talk in Christina's head and she defines it as like speech, and that gets a little confusing. The book is in free verse, which means that the pages, I actually have it right here, kind of look like this. Like, they're like poems. I love free verse, personally, but a lot of people probably would get confused by the writing in several cases because, you know, there is, like, this tiny little, like, 3 lines, and then over here, the end of the paragraph is, like, this 1 line over here on the other side of the page. So you got, like, this 3, and then this one over here, and you gotta remember to read this part, or else the next part doesn't make sense, and that does get a little hard sometimes. But, you know, once you start, it's much easier. Now, I would say that this book is probably geared towards an older audience, like ages 13, which is how old I am, to probably, like, older. Like, I wouldn't do anything younger than probably 11. And that's just because the book, I am 13 and I'm not exactly innocent. I've watched R-rated movies. I know a lot about drugs, and there are people in my family who have done drugs. I'm very familiar with that part of the world, and for me, this book was kind of hard to read. I had to pause a couple of times and just take in what was going on and try not to, like, totally freak out about it. I would recommend it to anybody that is willing to read it. It's an awesome book if you love, like, issues in the teen world, or if you've ever known or cared about somebody who's done drugs. It's probably pretty helpful for you because it helps you gain perspective on what that person's thinking when they're doing the drugs and how they see you, like, as a friend or a family member. And it's a really good book out there for people that would need something like that. Take the book in the right dose for you. Some people could probably read the whole book in one night and have no issues, which is almost what I did. I did 2 days in a night. And, you know, have no issues, maybe break every now and then because it's a little too much. And, you know, like, there's a little too much information and all that, and it's craziness. But there's also people that probably would take, like, you know, however long, like a long period of time to read it because it is very emotional. And especially if you can relate to the book, it's probably just horrific for you to read because you see yourself in that situation, or you see yourself as one of Christina's family members who's dealt with someone, who's loved someone who's been addicted to drugs. And it's probably a very hard book to read. I personally don't really have any tales that match Christina's, but I'm sure that people out there do, and it's probably a very hard book for them to read. Thank you. My first review by Ellen Hopkins, Crank, and Crazy Girl Book Reviews. Put in your comments, if you have any books you want me to review. I'd be happy to do that. Like I said, I'll probably put a review out every week. So, yeah, that sounds just about right. Bye. Love you guys.